Hello and welcome to another video from gardeningwithjason.com. We're down at the allotment again today. We've had an odd year this year. I think you'll probably agree with me with that. We've had the lockdown, obviously the virus. We've had weird and wonderful weather with storms, hot weather, then cold weather and lots of rain. And it's been a very, very difficult year for us all growing. This year I planted potatoes. This was one of the beds that had the potatoes in. Because of the whole early lockdown, I didn't get my potatoes in the ground on time, so I got them in, I think it was probably about May by the time I got them in the ground. And because I hadn't prepared the area over there where I was going to put them, where I've always grown potatoes, I decided that what I'd do is I'd grow down here in some of these raised beds, just to break up the soil a bit, and just because over there where I've grown them before, I think pests would build up in the soil. I was getting a lot of damage to the potatoes, and I grew them here, and I've probably got about 30. I didn't grow a great deal because it's difficult for me to store them all, but I got probably 30 kilos of potatoes, maybe more, and I'm really pleased with them. They're absolutely delicious. Unfortunately, I don't know what varieties I planted because I bought them from one of the local shops, and the labels had come off when I bought them. I'd forgotten about that, so when I went to plant them, I didn't know. One was new potatoes, I do know that much because I had some lovely new potatoes come out, and the other was a main crop, or at least a second early, but they came out lovely, good sized potatoes, good sized crop. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to dig these two beds. There's two beds here, both this size, and I just want to give them a quick turn over to make sure I've not forgotten any potatoes. Anyone who's planted potatoes in the ground will know that for years afterwards you will still get potatoes coming up. So I'm just going to give these a quick turn, and then when we get the next manure delivery on the allotment site, I'm going to fill these up with, top these up with manure and cover them for the winter. I'm very much now sort of putting the allotment to bed for winter, because it's been quite a strange year. I've not really had a lot of success with things. What I've decided to do is I'm not going to plant a great deal over winter. I'm going to get my onions in. I've got those in already. I'm going to get some garlic in. That's going in a couple of weeks when I prepared the beds. And that's about it for my winter growing. The rest of the winter is going to be spent sorting out the allotment. I've got a lot of work to do tidying up some of the paths. You'll see some of those in a bit. The area down there is just getting completely taken over by weeds. By the greenhouse, there's brick raised beds. They were put in sometime years and years ago, and unfortunately they are just full of weeds. I have tried planting things in them, and all that's happened is the bindweed and mare's tail has taken over. So what my plan is to demolish those beds. The bricks are just stacked on top of each other, so they fall over anyway. So I'm going to take those apart, sift the soil, get all the weeds out, and then I'm going to decide what I'm going to do in front of the greenhouse. I haven't decided yet. I may well, if I get time, move the asparagus bed. Not entirely sure where I'm going to move it to, but I am thinking about moving the asparagus bed for the same reason. It's just been infested with weeds and I can't get rid of them. So we'll see. But anyway, let's talk about what we got going on. The allotment apple trees are done quite well. If I just come over here so I can show you them a bit better. That's the one apple left on the tree now. I picked the rest yesterday. They were starting to fall and they were ripe anyway. The easy way to know if your apples are ready to pick, it is basically you give them a quick twist and a pull. So a quick twist and a slight tug, and if they're ripe they should come straight off. If you have to struggle to get them off, they're not generally considered ripe. Most of these came off quite easily. There was a few that didn't, but I've taken them all off because they're all starting to fall, and last year I lost a lot of the crop to birds. So what I'm going to have to do this winter, as you can see, it's gone quite tall, so it's going to get chopped off about 6.5 foot. And I'm going to finally try and train it across the wires there. Unfortunately, again, due to storms, bad weather and everything else, I haven't finished that. But the problem is of course I can't do any of that after the tree starts flowering. So last winter was really bad here, so I didn't get a chance to do anything with them over winter. So my plan is this winter, as soon as the trees died back, give it a good prune. You can see you got sort of these leaders going upwards here. These need to all come off. It just needs a real tidy up. This branch going down here might well go, and just some of the others, just to tidy it up, get it going across there neatly, and then that'll be sorted. Unfortunately this year I didn't really get a lot of apples. Last year got lots and lots of apples, got a massive crop off both this tree and this tree. I think this one's John Gold, and I can't remember that one. But I've got 3 heritage trees there. They're very young. I got a couple of apples off those, which were quite nice. But you can see they're not quite big enough, but I do need to start training them fairly soon. So they're going to get trained quite quickly. But I think this year, because the bees were kept in their hives at pollinating time, I don't think I saw a great deal of pollinating insects, and so we didn't get a very good crop at all. I can understand why the beekeepers, I believe, were vulnerable. I know some of them have had health conditions, so they weren't here, and one of them, their plot's completely covered. I don't think they've done anything this year, so I think, you know, quite rightly they chose to stay in and keep, just so they didn't have to come down here. The bees stayed in hives. They're out now, but you know, when it was come to pollinating the apple trees, they weren't around. But that's fine. The trees have put on a lot of new growth, so it'll be quite easy for me to train these 2 trees over winter now. The fruit trees have done quite well. The blackcurrants all need pruning, so I'm going to give them another month or so, and then I'm going to prune them. I'm going to certainly prune the red currant. The red currant's blocking access down the back there now, so I need to sort those out. I'm not going to take any cuttings of the blackcurrants because I think I've got plenty of them. I've got 3 bushes there. That's more than enough for my needs. The loganberry there, I'm not sold on it yet. In fact, I'm not even sold that that's loganberry. I need to double check. That looks like it could well be blackberry. In fact, I'm pretty sure that is blackberry. I'm going to double check that. But you can see the loganberries come up, and then there's 2 gooseberry bushes there. I might take some cuttings of gooseberries because I really like gooseberries, and I might well plant those. So these beds are going to get dug over. Just a quick fork, loosen up the soil, liven it up again, and I want to cover these ready for winter. You can see I've covered some of the other beds there. Those 4 beds there, that one's going to get uncovered. I'm just going to give them a quick dig over, get the weeds out. I've got some topsoil in that bag over there, and then they're going to get dosed up with topsoil, and then those 4 beds are going to have garlic in. So I'm going to do plenty of garlic. What I've been doing in the last couple of years is I've been keeping some of the garlic that I've grown, and I'm replanting it. So I'm kind of breeding my own strain. And I know sort of a lot of people say, oh, you're planting the garlic and the onions way too early. I planted 1 bunch of onions about this time last year, and I had a really good crop of onions. It was actually the best crop I'd ever had. So I planted them early because I think it gives them a bit of extra time before the cold and damp sets in, when I just don't think they grow. So we had you know, winters up here are they're not particularly freezing, they're just miserable. And I can understand the onions not wanting to grow, to be perfectly fair. This area here still needs clearing. As you can see, it's the right state. But the plan is with this area is I think I'm going to put some fruit in it. So I've got summer fruiting raspberries there. They're going to get dug up and thrown away. They're horrible. The autumn fruiting raspberries are really nice, but they're so invasive. They just get everywhere. They really wind me up because they get everywhere. So they're likely to get dug up and probably put in containers. So I've got some large containers behind the shed. So I think I'm going to fill those up with sort of compost and topsoil, and then the raspberries are all going to go in the containers, purely to keep them under control. I'm not the world's biggest fan of raspberries. I don't mind them. The family don't particularly like them. So it's one of those where you think, well, there's not a huge reason to grow them because there isn't really anything I can do with them because no one else eats them apart from me. And there's only so many raspberries a man can eat. So they're going to get into pots and put there. I've also got a couple of blueberries. They're stuck in a bed in front of the greenhouse where they were just sort of put for now. So I'm thinking of putting those there. And my blackberry bushes that are on the other side of the greenhouse, their performance has dropped, shall we say. They were producing really nice blackberries, and then the last couple of, sort of the last year and this year's crop, it's just seemed a lot smaller and a lot bitterer. And if you look carefully, you can see I've got a visitor over there. There's a little robin. Oh, he's flown off again. See if we can catch him. Yes, there he is. He often keeps us company down here, and he's obviously seen me get the spade out because he does like to follow me around after I dig things. So back to the blackberries. I need to replace the blackberries at the end of the day. I don't think they're performing well. They're not particularly pleasant anymore. I think their time has gone. So I'm going to dig up all that side and do something with that. What I'm going to do, don't know yet. This was a strawberry and herb bed, and borage appeared in it. My angelica, unfortunately, I had a really big angelica plant there. Unfortunately, we had some storms, and it toppled the angelica, and the angelica died, which is a tragedy. But I've got some chives in there, in both beds, and strawberries. I'm going to have to thin out all the strawberries. The strawberries, again, they might all get dug up and thrown away because they've done nothing this year except produce runners. I haven't had a single strawberry off any of the plants. I've had thousands of runners, not a single strawberry, so not very happy with them. There's a cauliflower. I've had 2 cauliflowers about this size, and my one broccoli was about a quarter of the size of that. It was literally a floret. It was a mouthful. So a shame, a real shame. But the problem is again, the weather's been that bad that these have all gone over in the time it's taken me to come down this. So I've come down and gone like that one there. You know, I'd come down a few days last week and it wasn't quite ready. So I thought, well, I'll leave it a couple of days. Come down yesterday and you can see it's gone. Which is a bit of a shame. The courgette plants, you can see, oh, can we see it there? In there, there's a courgette. I'll let that grow a little bit bigger because I want to stuff them. I've got another courgette plant over there. Again, I've not had a good year for courgettes, which is an utter shame. And then there's some sort of squash. I think it's a butternut squash there. But again, not doing well. It just seems to produce male flowers, which it tends to do when the weather's not brilliant. So that's a real shame. The marigolds, they've had a fantastic year. They've loved every minute of it. They really have. But you know, this is the thing with allotments. You get good and bad years, and some years they're good, some years they're not, and it just seems to be one of those years. So as I said, for me, I'm pretty much writing the year off and just saying, do you know what? I'm going to sort everything out over winter and start afresh next year. And I think a lot of us feel the same way. In that bed there, I planted a lot of seeds I wouldn't normally plant this year, because at the end of lockdown I sort of came down here. I hadn't really bought any seeds because obviously everyone had panic bought them and there weren't many around. So I thought, what can I plant? I had some magazines with seeds on it, so I planted some chard. I'm not sold on it. I mean, I like cabbage. I love Savoy cabbage. I'm going to be growing a lot of that next year, and you know, I really enjoy that and some of the other cabbages. But chard, I don't know. I don't like it. I've tried steaming it. It's not pleasant as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not entirely sure what to do with it. At the moment, it's on the don't bother to grow again list. But I grew some turnips and beetroots next to it. And again, neither of them have done very well. Neither of them performed particularly brilliantly. The turnips haven't formed proper balls, and nor have the beetroots. The sunflowers, they've had a great day. You can see that one there, nice tall sunflowers, probably about 7 foot. It's got multiple flower heads forming up there, and that one's spent. But again, all the storms, just taking a couple of them down. That one there though, that one's just sort of grown up at a funny angle, which is fine. I'll just leave it be. Over in this bed on the end, I've had to clear this because this is my saffron bed, and you can see if we come down here, there's the saffron coming up again. I'm hoping to actually get some saffron off of it. It's really difficult, saffron. You've got to catch it at just the right time. What I found last year is I'd come down and it would just start flowering. I think, oh, brilliant. And then it would start throwing it down. I'd come down a week later and it'd all gone. So you've literally got to come down on almost daily basis with a pair of tweezers and carefully pick them all off. You won't get a lot out of them. Each plant only produces 2 or 3 stamen at the most, but you know, it's just fun to grow, and it's a useful autumn flower for insects as well. So they're just starting to come up now. So again, you can see all the other little weeds coming in. What I've done this year is I've actually made a change in how I deal with my weeds. Last year what I did is I composted everything, and this year I used some of that compost, and then I regretted it, because what I discovered is where I'd like I had radishes and they'd flowered and set seed, and I threw them on the compost heap, you know, as you do. Unfortunately, the seeds hadn't composted, and when I used the compost, I grew some radishes. And the really annoying thing is I actually got the best crop of radishes ever out of these seeds from the compost than from planting any properly. But all other seeds, fat hen, dock, nettle, all those have come up. So what I've done this year is all the seedy weeds, so sort of perennial weeds like that, any other weeds, dock, dandelion, mare's tail, all those, I've been putting them in plastic bags, and then I've been taking them to the tip, because I'm not composting them here and then spreading it all over my plot. It just isn't working for me. So if we go over to the other part of the allotment now, frustratingly enough, I've done quite a good job of clearing this end of the allotment, but the bit near the path, which everyone can see, I've not really touched. So when you walk past my allotment, you think, oh, scruffy bugger. Right. So all these beds, these are new for this year. I filled them up with manure, and I really stacked them up, and you can see, if I just, yeah, the manure's gone down quite a bit. So the manure's already breaking down nicely. So what I'm going to do in the spring is I'll uncover these beds, top them up with some compost, maybe mine, maybe I'll buy some, but I'll give them a bit of a top up, dig that in, and then the beds will be ready to use. So you see, I've got quite a few all covered, all ready to use. So because I'm not planting a lot over winter, I haven't left the beds uncovered, because what I had originally left these beds here with no covers on, and I thought, oh, that'll be fine, doesn't matter. But what I found was I was ending up coming down every day and weeding them, because there'd be mare's tail and, you know, whatever blown into them coming up with weeds. So I decided that I'd cover them all for the winter, because when I come down here, I don't want to be reworking and reweeding stuff that I've already weeded. So if you want to reduce the amount of work you need to do in winter, cover your beds. And you can see there, this one was covered, but it's been the wind's blown it apart, so I'm gonna have to put that back and sort it out. These are the autumn fruiting raspberries. Again, they do produce a good crop. You can see there's quite a few over there, but it's the invasiveness of them, because what they're doing is they're actually coming under the path and coming up here in my neighbour's plot. They're coming up between the paving slabs, they're coming up down the side here, and they're really just irritating me now. So what my plan is I need to get rid of those. And then the raised beds are going to continue up here and across there. Come winter time, a lot of that will die down. And you can see, unfortunately, where I didn't come down at the start of lockdown, because my allotments are more than a certain distance away from where I live, I didn't want to drive that far because, you know, nobody was sure what the rules were. So I didn't come down here very often, and the weeds have just got a foothold, and unfortunately they've taken over. So I did have some giant nettles here. I took those all down yesterday. I had some over there, over the other side as well. So I've taken down all the big nettles and taken them to the tip, and I'm slowly but surely trying to regain control. So you can see here, this grass isn't as bad as it looks, because it's actually just grown from here and grown over, so it's actually quite easy to pull up. But you can see there the mare's tail. You know, there's weed membrane, and then there's wood chip, and the mare's tail's still growing through it. So I've been going through and pulling up as best I can, but you know, it's running away with me. And again, the problem I've got here is the same thing. The grass is growing from here over everything else. So what I want to do with this area is I'm going to pull all the mint out of there. That's going to go into a container, because at the end of the day, I know everyone says mint is invasive, and I've said it for years, it should always go in the container, but I was in a hurry and I shoved it in the ground there, and it really is, it's such an invasive weed. So that's going to come out over winter. It's going to go into containers. I might do some a bit later on. You see you've got some chives in there. I moved some chives down the other end, and I'm going to sort of dot chives around. So a lot of my beds will have some chives in, purely because they attract pollinating insects. I've also got a horseradish plant at home. I've grown it in a container, and I've decided it's going to go in the corner there. So I'm going to put a horseradish there. I think that'll go quite nicely. So I just need to tidy that area up, and then get the horseradish in. And the bay trees as well, they've done very, very well. Considering these were sort of 6-inch high rescues from the range, it cost me 50p a tree. They're looking really, really good. They're getting tall enough now, so give it another year, and I'll start taking all the tops off, and then that'll be as tall as it's going to get. But it's quite nice there, and I think again, if I put the horseradish around here somewhere, and I might get something else structural like this to go here, and it forms a bit of a barrier. This is where all the blackberries are that I want to take up, and you can see, yeah, I said the first couple of years these were really nice big blackberries. I don't know whether it's because they're cross-pollinated with wild blackberries, or I mean they're not wild blackberries, because they're not they're not spiky. You can see the smooth stems. So, but I'm just wondering whether a lot of this is new growth. I wonder whether it's cross-pollinated with wild blackberries, and that's sort of what's caused it or something. I don't know at the end of the day, but I know that these are now really, really bitty. I made a blackberry and apple pie with them the other day, and they were so full of seeds it was really hard to eat. So I think unfortunately their days are numbered. So I said, and then what I can do is I can plant something else down here at some point, maybe expand some of my herbs out, or get some other structural type plants to go there. So maybe I could get some sort of fruit bushes, grow them in large containers sunk into the ground, and sort of plant them down here, a bit further away from the path. Unfortunately, these are grown literally right on the edge of the allotment, so they grow over onto the roadway, as you can see, and get in everyone's way. So if I grew anything else, I'd sort of move them a foot further back towards the greenhouse. The greenhouse over winter needs a lot of repair work. The winds have just damaged it. I did start clearing it last year. I've cleared some of it out. So what I need to do over winter, I again just need to wait for things to die back, and then I'm going to empty it all. I've literally got to empty everything out, put the weed membrane down in there, and then put everything back in. But I'm going to dig out the grapevine. I've tried everything with that grapevine. It won't produce grapes. All it does is produce blooming green growth everywhere. It's shoving its way through the glass in the greenhouse. It just makes the greenhouse unusable because you can't get in there. I did move it. I think it might have been last winter, last year or the year before. I moved it so that the main shoot came out in an attempt to encourage it, but that hasn't really helped either. So I think that unfortunately is going to go and be chalked down to being unproductive. I might look at a variety that will grow up here, and maybe I could grow that along here. I don't know. The problem is a lot of the grapes that you grow, particularly this far north, they're not really good eaters. So I don't know if there are any varieties that are. I'm going to have to look into it, but we'll see. But I might get some sort of dwarf trees or sort of larger fruit bushes, you know, like the blueberries. Even the blueberries could go down there maybe. So we'll have a think. But you can see unfortunately there's an awful lot to do. There always is when you own an allotment. But you know, as long as you ignore this end and you just look at the other end, it doesn't look too bad. So we'll concentrate on this end for now. But you can see again, I had a cherry tree here that I cut down, and it sent up runners from underground, so from the root system, so they've got to come down. The cherry tree here unfortunately just wasn't any good. It didn't produce cherries, and all it did was this great big tree in the middle that was sucking up all the resources. And from what I understand, it was only planted because the previous plot owner liked to cut the canes and use them as walking sticks or something. But then half this plot wasn't cultivated for 15 years, and the other half just had potatoes growing in it. So it's no wonder that this half of the plot is full of potato pests, because from what I understand, all he did every year for many years was shove excess potatoes in this area here. That area under those weeds, there's never been cultivated from what I understand. So I've got rid of most of the rubbish that's down here. What's left there is sort of bits of a greenhouse. So what I want to do is I want to look to see if that greenhouse can be rescued and can be used. If it can't, it's all going to the tip. I've got loads of spare greenhouse glass over there, and again, I'm going to see if I can use that, and if I can't, I'll offer it to other plot holders, and if they don't want it, it's all down the tip. Because at the end of the day, this is the problem when you take over an old plot. You get all sorts of rubbish left here. It took me 2 or 3 days to empty the shed. It was that full of rubbish. The greenhouse took longer. I found rat poison in the greenhouse. I found a first aid kit that was over 20 years old in there. There's like 6 pairs of wellies, all sorts of rubbish. And again, I've just had to clear it all down the back there. There was probably about 10 or 15 of those big rubble bags, builder's bags, they're 1-ton ones, and they were just full of rubbish, literally full of rubbish. And I've had to take all those to the tip. We don't get skips or anything like that here. We do get, I think, scrap metals collected, because obviously that's worth something, but a lot of it was just junk. So you know, you can expect that, and you know, it has taken a while for me to get it under control, but I've got half of it productive, and I'm hoping after this winter I really want to focus on getting the other half very productive too. And I'll just show you something on my apple tree. I'm going to have to Google all this when I get home. Can you see all this on the leaves? Every leaf on this tree has that, so I'm going to have to look this up. You can see again, there you are. So that's some sort of leaf miner, I'm imagining. So I'm going to have to look it up and maybe put a band on the tree if necessary. But that's what's going on here. What's going on at your allotment or in your garden? And what can I do with Swiss chard that actually makes it edible? Any suggestions? Really appreciated. So anyway, I look forward to hearing from you. You have a fantastic week at your allotment and in your garden, and enjoy the good weather as long as it lasts.